is one of the most important institutions that humanity has created, not only because of our shared hope that it will accomplish what's set out in its charter, but because the United Nations provides a place where representatives of all the peoples of the world listen to witnesses tell of their experiences, and after listening, policy is made. This is a place where testimony forms the basis for action. When I began to consider what I'd say about this year's theme, Journeys Through the Holocaust, I was confronted with two questions. The first was whether I could speak meaningfully, since I'm not a Holocaust survivor. I'm a Jewish American man born a year after World War II. My initial awareness of what had happened to the Jews of Europe under fascism came from my grandmother and my grandfather telling me horrifying accounts of the fates of their relatives and their friends. And when I was 3 or 4 years old, I remember sitting with my grandmother, and she taught English to Hungarian survivors. And they showed me the concentration camp tattoos on their arms, and I've been told that this is where I started to learn to read numbers. Like a lot of Jewish kids, I encountered versions of anti-Semitism growing up, and I examined those encounters in the light of the history I absorbed of pogroms and death camps. Anti-Semitism led to the construction of Auschwitz, and while I sensed a connection between bigoted slurs and genocide, I wondered how the American version of anti-Semitism that I had experienced had been rendered so infinitely less destructive. And the effort to answer this question shaped my politics, as did learning that in addition to 6 million Jewish lives claimed during the Holocaust and the genocide of the Roma, Nazi persecution victimized many other groups, such as homosexuals, the disabled, and political dissidents, all vulnerable to prejudice and oppression of the fascist killing machine. I became a filmmaker because it was important to me to communicate my concerns and preoccupations to my audience, and when I became a father to my children. And it took me approximately 20 years of directing sharks, aliens, and dinosaurs before I believed I might be ready to make a film about the Holocaust. And once I started directing Schindler's List, I realized that I felt anything but ready for the task that lay before me. During the filming, the survivors visiting the set told me their histories, and many said, "Please tell my story after you tell Oskar Schindler's." Now, they weren't asking to have a movie made about them. They were asking me to help ensure the existence of an indelible record of what had befallen them, of what had befallen their loved ones, their cities, their entire culture, and their civilization. So I believe that given the opportunity, they could become the world's teachers. We needed only to give them the platform. We built that platform when we began the Shoah Foundation in 1994. It was in the first 4 years, our videographers and interviewers traveled the world recording approximately 250 interviews with Holocaust survivors each and every week. Rena Finder's journey is recorded in her Shoah Foundation testimony, along with the journeys of 51,413 other survivors living in 56 countries, speaking in 32 languages. Directing Schindler's List, interviewing survivors, this was my way to try to understand the Holocaust. Breaking down a phenomenon of overwhelming horror into individual moments was the only way I knew how to approach and better understand it. Those who lived through it know what we will never know, but we can learn because they want to teach us. Survivors and witnesses often say that their dearest hope, the hope that helped keep them alive, was to be heard and to be believed and to be understood. So although I have no personal journey through the Holocaust to recount, I offer my journey to the journeys of survivors. My Holocaust journey, and that of everyone not a survivor, is a journey toward understanding. My second question regarding our theme, Journeys Through the Holocaust, pertains to the preposition through. That word made me pause. In this context, it strikes me as being a tremendously optimistic word. It suggests that it was possible and remains possible to enter and then exit the Holocaust. That for those who experienced it and for the world in which it occurred, there was a beginning and an end. And of course, they were both, historically speaking. A very small minority of people did survive the camps and went on to live productive and long lives, extraordinary lives, in the course of which many felt that they decisively triumphed over the evil that tried and failed to devour them. Survivors of horror often express an undaunted, undamaged optimism, and there's nothing I know about human beings more marvelous and beautiful than this capacity to transform rage and grief into a wellspring of wisdom, progress, and justice. But the survivors' powerful determination to contribute to a future without genocides doesn't come from leaving the Holocaust behind, from escaping history. Their determined demand is that we engage fully with history, that the Holocaust remain with us in memory. Theirs were journeys into the Holocaust. They cannot emerge from it, and neither can the world until there are no more genocides, until the unthinkable becomes impossible. Tragically, we are all aware that the Holocaust is still with us today in ongoing attempts at genocide all around our planet. In response to this reality, we expanded the Shoah Foundation's collection to include testimony from the genocides in Armenia, Cambodia, Rwanda, the Nanjing Massacre, and eventually will include testimony from Srebrenica and Sudan.